What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. I believe this is going to be the last pre-recorded video you will see. And then tomorrow, I am back in town. I'm back home and no more pre-recorded videos. So again, if anything in this video is out of date, I apologize. But today we're going to continue with our 2021 preview prediction series. And today we're going to be talking about the Ole Miss Rebels. Can this be a dark horse team in the SEC? You're going to find out my thoughts in a little bit. If you're new to the channel, hey, leave a like, hit the subscribe button down below. Channel's been growing a lot. And again, I want to get these videos out to as many people as possible. You can share the video as well. Leave a comment down below. Tell me your thoughts on the Rebels this year. Just keep it PG. Don't fight each other in the comment section down below. Just keep it friendly. Without further ado, let's go ahead, talk about the Ole Miss Rebels in 2021. And this is a team that in 2020 was a fairly solid team. Under Lane Kiffin. This team definitely has offensive firepower, and we know what they can do, but it is that defensive side. This is much the story like with USC. How good is their defense going to play this year? They possibly can have one of the best offenses in college football this year. It is absolutely a factor, or it is absolutely a possibility. But when we look at the talent that they've lost, there might be some setbacks in that. Elijah Moore is the biggest loss that this team is taking in this year. That is huge. I mean, Elijah Moore was one of the best playmakers in college football last year. One of the best wide receivers. I believe he led the SEC in receiving yards last year as well. That is a huge loss for Ole Miss, and they're going to need to be able to recover from that. They have some guys that can step up. So Marcus Gregory also out as a wide receiver, as is tight end Kenny Yaboa. A really good tight end. If you've watched Ole Miss games, he was showing some signs of improvement. Had some shaky starts, though, some shaky play. But overall, a really solid player when he plays well. They're going to be missing him at the tight end spot. Offensive lineman Royce Newman gone. And a big loss on the defensive line in Ryder Anderson. He went and transferred to Indiana, who we talked about last week. But Ryder Anderson, big loss on the defensive line. That's a hit that this defense takes. Lacavius Daniel, sorry if I pronounced that name wrong, and Jay Stanley gone from the defensive backing group. So you got one big piece on both offense and defense. Well, Kenny Yaboa, you can throw in as a big piece on offense as well. Might be more that I don't have here on my screen. This is just what I have on my screen that stood out to me as some notable losses. But as the saying goes, it's not about what you lost. It is about what you have. Quarterback Matt Corral should become a household name this year. And if you don't know who Matt Corral is, go watch some film of Matt Corral before you watch an Ole Miss Rebels game this year. He has such a strong arm, and he is a great playmaker, a very much so a dual threat quarterback, can run if he has to, but loves to sit in that pocket and throw the ball. He is going to be phenomenal this year, in my opinion. And then you also have John Rice Plumley coming back, listed on the roster as a quarterback, or has been in the past couple of years, but now, the Rebels might want him playing at wide receiver. We'll have to see how John Rice Plumley does at wide receiver. They might still use him as a quarterback, but Lane Kiffin has said, yeah, we need his production as a wide receiver. So we'll see how that goes for John Rice Plumley. But speaking of wide receivers, you have Ja'Cour Pearson, and what I think is going to be the number one target this year, and Donatario Drummond. I think he's going to be that number one target for Ole Miss this year. If not, it'll probably end up being Pearson. One of those two. I see it being Drummond. They also have one of the best backs in the nation in Jerrion Ealy. Can catch a pass out of the backfield if he has to, but is an absolutely fantastic running back. The SEC's got a lot of those, and Jerrion Ealy is one of them. Linebackers are going to highlight this defense. Sam Williams, Jaquez Jones, Chance Campbell. You also got Keldron Smith and a really good defensive back in AJ Finley as well. So some solid pieces on defense. How does that defensive line look without Ryder Anderson? That is a big question I have. How do they replace Elijah Moore? Again, another big question I have. Drummond's going to have to step up, play well, has in the past. Ealy's going to have a big year. He's capable of doing it. This Ole Miss team is just a team. It's just energy in a bottle that's waiting to burst out. They could have a fantastic year this year. And let's take a first look at their schedule. Hey, they were 5-5 they were 5-5 in 2020, 4-5 in the SEC, and did end up beating the Outback Bowl against Indiana, 5th in the SEC West. That's a tough division. to play in. Hey, you guys know how this works. I'm talking about some games more than others. There are more interesting matchups to me. If the date gets highlighted in green, it is a win, and if it gets highlighted in red, it is a loss. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about Ole Miss in 2021. They start off with a game, neutral site, Labor Day game against Louisville in Atlanta. This could end up being a fun game to watch, but for Louisville, I just I don't like Louisville this year. That coach that's at Louisville, his name is escaping me right now, is on the hot seat. Just not a good year from Louisville the past couple of years. They've been disappointing. I think they're going to be disappointing again this year. I have Ole Miss being able to beat Louisville by 14 plus points. This should be a nice win for Ole Miss. At home against Austin Peay, that's a win. Easy win against the Governors. Pretty solid FCS team, but they are not going to be able to compete with Ole Miss. And then a home game against Tulane. Tulane's losing some talent this year, especially at the running back position and just all across the field. Tulane's usually always a solid team that's there. I don't think they're going to be too good this year, though, especially for a team like Ole Miss. They should be able to beat Tulane pretty easily. And this is probably not the ideal place for a bye week in terms of the week that it's at. They have their bye week at week 4 really early. But in terms of scheduling, hey, it's before their toughest game of the year on the road against Alabama. And I'll just go ahead and highlight that one in red right now. Yeah, they're not going to be able to beat Bama. Last year, they could have done it at home. If they're going to beat Bama, they're going to win a shootout game. Offensively, this should be a fun one to watch, but defensively, I just think that Bama has 2, 3, 4, 5 times the defense that Ole Miss is going to have this year. I think Bama gets this one done. You know I have Bama going undefeated if you've watched that video. Now a home game against Arkansas. Watch out for this one, Rebel fans. Arkansas is not an easy team to beat. I don't think they're going to be an easy team to beat this year. Anyway, Sam Pittman has made some improvements to Arkansas. Now they are losing Felipe Franks, Rakeem Boyd gone as well. So could be some trouble offensively for Arkansas. Can that quarterback take the next step if they have a really good wide receiver in Treylon Burks? That guy's ridiculous, and he made an excellent catch against Ole Miss last year. They're going to be looking to go back to him this year as well. I think this is going to be a much improved Ole Miss defense. While they might not be spectacular, I think they're going to be a solid. They're going to make some stops, and I think Ole Miss is going to win a tight one against Arkansas. I could see this being a really, really good game. I think Ole Miss, though, is able to blow it out towards the end of the game and get this win. All right, game against Tennessee. I don't know what you want me to say about this one. I've talked about Tennessee so many times before, losing like 50 players and just with recruiting violations. Now they have a new head coach. I don't know what to think of Tennessee this year. To me, they're probably either going to be an average, middle-of-the-road team, or they're going to be really bad. I know it's on the road for Ole Miss. I don't see Tennessee pulling off what I'm going to call an upset here. I have the Rebels beating this one. And, hey, the Rebels starting off 5-1. Flashes of what they did past couple of years, right? Or years ago, 15, 16, when they were in the top 25. Then they get a home game against LSU. I did LSU not too long ago. So if you've watched that video, hey, you know my pick on this game. I just feels like something's going to be special about this Ole Miss team. I think they're going to have a lot of momentum coming in this game. Some wins against Arkansas, Tennessee. It's not great momentum, but playing at home, this Ole Miss team is going to be solid offensively. I think if they can stay away from Derek Stingley, they're probably going to match up Stingley on Drummond, though. At least that's what my opinion would be this time in the season. This is going to be a fantastic game to watch. I think it goes back and forth, but at the end of the day, I do think Ole Miss is able to pull this one out. I just think that Ole Miss is going to pull off an upset, quote unquote, against one of the bigger name teams in the SEC this year. I have it being this one, pulling off the win against the LSU Tigers. I think LSU still got a couple of holes to fill defensively, offensively as well. There's just a lot of space for LSU to fill. Maybe they have it figured out by this week. I'm betting on Ole Miss to get the win as of right now. All right, the Auburn Tigers are up next, and Auburn is an interesting team. bringing in Brian Harsin, who was the old Boise State head coach, to replace Gus Malzahn, I think is a pretty good move, pretty good hire. This means that the offensive line at Auburn should get better because Gus didn't really recruit offensive linemen. I don't follow recruiting that closely, but someone told me that Auburn's offensive line usually not that great. I think it's going to get a little bit better this year. Brian Harsin's just a good coach for the offensive line. He'll get someone there to coach the offensive line well as well. But they still have some nice young pieces. Well, not young anymore. I think they're all going to be juniors, seniors. But Seth Williams, Bo Nix, Tank Bigsby, that's wide receiver, quarterback, running back, in that order. Could be the most underrated quarterback, running back, wide receiver trio in the entire nation this year. I think they're going to be a fantastic trio to watch. How does Auburn do defensively? I think that's another big key. This one's going to be played in Jordan-Hare. I think the stadium is going to be rocking. I think it's going to be a hard matchup for Ole Miss. I think they're going to come off a little bit of a high off of that LSU game, and I have the Auburn Tigers getting the win. Again, I pick the records, and then I go out and I pick the games. That's just what I do. I see the Auburn Tigers beating the Ole Miss Rebels here. I think Jordan-Hare is going to be rocking. I don't think Ole Miss is going to get a lot of communication. And I think this is going to be a shootout. And if Bo Nix can find Seth Williams and Tank Bigsby can get it past this defensive front seven, which I think he's more than capable of doing, I think Auburn's going to pull off what's going to be considered as an upset, giving Ole Miss their second loss of the season. And now a game against the Liberty Flames. And this is going to be a lot of fun to watch as well. Ole Miss, though, coming off a loss, they could be on a little bit of a low. And I think this is going to be a tight game. The Liberty Flames have one of the best quarterbacks in the nation in Malik Willis. He is absolutely fantastic. They got other great weapons. Hugh Freeze knows what he's doing here with the Liberty Flames. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think Ole Miss is going to be too much. I think this is going to be a shootout type game. Defenses might matter more than you think in this one. I think it's going to be tight all game long. It's going to be close throughout. I have the Rebels beating the Flames. I see it as a close one. We know Liberty can challenge some of these higher up Power 5 teams. They did it last year with NC State and Virginia Tech. Of course, they split those two and were able to beat a pretty good Coastal Carolina team last year, giving them their only loss of the season. So Liberty is, sorry, I knocked my phone. I use it as a timer. So Liberty is more than capable of pulling off this win, but I do have the Rebels winning. Texas A&M. This is a possible upset pick here. A lot of people are picking this upset. A lot of people are picking Texas A&M to go on to lose to the Ole Miss Rebels, and I do not. I've already put out my Texas A&M video, so you knew where this one was going if you've watched that. I don't think Ole Miss wins this one. Look, I could see this one flopping either way. Ole Miss is going to be a fantastic offensive team. I just think Texas A&M has the defensive talent with DeMarvin Leal at defensive end and company. I think A&M's defense is going to be maybe twice as good as Ole Miss, especially late in the season. A&M, at least in my opinion, is going to have one loss coming into this game. They're going to be playing for their season. Ole Miss already has 2 losses. It's just about being an SEC contender at this point. I think A&M wins this one against the Ole Miss Rebels. They should be able to beat Vanderbilt. That should be an easy win for them. And I also think they're going to be able to beat Mississippi State. Vanderbilt, they're probably going to be vying for worst in the SEC. Same thing with Mississippi State. This game recently just got moved to a Thursday, so now being played on a Thursday, of course. But I think Mississippi State is the most overrated team coming into this year. If you've seen my overrated list, you know. This team is getting a lot of hype because a lot of people like the Mike Leach air raid system. Give it a couple more years. I think this Mississippi State team is going to be vying just not to be last in the SEC, much like this Vanderbilt team is. Heck, that game might even decide last place if they play this year. So with that, hey, you see 3 games highlighted in red. So with that, Ole Miss goes 9-3 in 2021. This is an interesting team because they have a very high ceiling and a pretty low floor as well. I can maybe even see the floor being 5-7 if the defense just does not pan out. 500 to me, though, is the floor. I don't see them doing much worse than that. But 11-1, not beating Bama. They're just not. They can beat Auburn. They can beat Texas A&M. I really do believe that this team is poised to do something great this year. but I do have them going 9-3. I just think that the defense is going to struggle in a couple of games. And I think even a lot of these games on the schedule might be a lot closer than you might think. That Arkansas game, that could be closer than you might think as well. Mississippi State, if State's better than we all think, sure, that game could be closer. Liberty, that game's going to be really close as well. Even the Auburn game, I think, is going to be closer than a lot of people think. People are counting out Auburn a lot this year. I mean, I don't think they're going to be anything special. They're not going to be great, but they're going to be a solid team, and they have some nice talent. So there you go. That is my Ole Miss predictions for 2021. If you guys enjoyed, leave a like. Also hit the subscribe button if you are brand new to the channel or you enjoy my content. Keep that subscriber number going up. Ring the bell as well, because I'm going to start uploading every day here in a couple of weeks. You want to be sure that you stick around for that. I believe it's even next week that starts, or the week after. Not sure. Remember to play hard. Tailgate harder. I am back in town tomorrow, and we're going to be looking at the We're going to be looking at the Iowa Hawkeyes. Iowa Hawkeyes, then the Oklahoma State Cowboys. There you go. Again, remember, play hard, tailgate harder. Iowa is up tomorrow. Goodbye.